I'm happy to welcome Stefan Kløvning from Nordic AI. He's one of the founders of Nordic AI, an AI automation agency, and I'm happy to have this intro profile interview with him. Stefan, is there anything you can tell about you?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, I'm the co-founder and also the operative leader in Nordic AI. I've been a co-founder or I've been a founder for a bit over 1.5 years. So it's a very exciting journey to be on, and especially both to live the adventures in both the founder journey and also the AI journey, which is quickly developing, and kind of being on the forefront of helping businesses with that is a very exciting field to be in.
How long ago have you started this?
So this company we started in September 2024, so it's been around half a year now. And then my first company was in December 2023, so a bit over 1.5 years. And then I met some new friends on the journey where we started a second company and focused on building an AI-based company together.
How did you come together, your team? How did you meet, and what sparked the idea of founding the new agency?
It's a very interesting journey because all basically comes down to the networking part. Because what I did right in the beginning was that I was a lot at the physical networking events in my town here in Bergen. I also did some international networking and national networking through digitally. But I met some people on the physical events, the B2B networking events here in Bergen. One of them invited me on to as a guest in a digital kind of BNI meeting. It's kind of an international B2B networking group. And then I got in touch with Sebastian, who also then I kept conversation with afterwards. He introduced me to Vetle, and then later on me and Sebastian and Vetle started the company Nordic AI together from there, as we already had our own companies in a sense. We had some similar focused overlapping fields concerning AI development and so on. And so what started as an informal cooperation between our companies then eventually naturally formed into kind of a joint venture in a sense, working together in this new agency to continue building like within our own fields, right? Where Sebastian had a focus on mental health right from the beginning using AI for this. I had more of the focus on the B2B enterprise projects, and Vetle came in with the AI chatbot focus. So we had these three kind of components in a sense, and then we kind of merged these together when we started our new agency together.
How many people are in your team at the moment?
Well, it's a challenging question because in the core team there are 5 people, like the 3 founders plus 1 in the board member as a board member and another legal counsel. But when we see like in our whole network in a sense that we're kind of active in work right now, we have both marketing partners, like dedicated marketing people, also subcontractors on this, and a large network in general of people who are actively working for our companies, for our companies indirectly right now. So probably close to 20-30, maybe more people indirectly, even though it's a core team of 5.
And you work across the borders, right? Not all of them are in your country, Norway.
That's correct. So work a lot internationally. We do some subcontracting from other developers from other countries like Bangladesh, Ukraine, India, other countries in the Balkans, and so on internationally in general, and both for the development, marketing, distribution, and other fields.
So what challenges do you meet with this kind of blended work on site and on distance?
The challenges with long distance, I would say I have had a positive experience with long distance in general, even though if we're starting with talking about just internally in Norway, because me and Sebastian and Vetle are on different parts of live in different parts of Norway, but still we have founded a company together and are still communicating and living with each other in a sense through the company until now, right, over half a year later, and now we're prospering with that. So we have managed that quite well. It's been challenging to some degree, but we've met like maybe 2, 3, 4 times physically, but even despite that, in that we have had to take most of things digitally, then we have managed it pretty well. Of course, when it comes to the kind of partnership meetings and meeting new people and so on, generally when I meet people in Bergen and they live in Bergen, they live in the same town as me, I prefer to have the physical meeting, the coffee chat and so on, where you get to meet people a bit more intimately. But when you don't have the chance to do that easily, or they live in other town or other countries, you have to make the best you can out of the digital meetings you can. And in some cases it's a match, in other cases it's not, but in many cases it's generally a numbers game, right? That you have to take a lot of these meetings, you have to take a lot of coffee chats, possible partnership meetings. Some work out very well and others don't become anything more out from there, but it's really just something you take a lot of, and then it kind of becomes natural for you to see from there how to overcome the challenges concerning long distance and so on, and how to proceed from there to make the most for both parties involved.
I see that you have pretty tough schedule, and you are traveling and having sport challenges and cold water challenges, and a lot of some parties, some going out. How do you combine your active social life with your work? And by the way, how many hours per week do you work?
Well, what do I answer first here? Well, when it comes to the balance between the business and social stuff, what I really like about my way of working right now is that I can go to these B2B events, right? That there are a lot of these social B2B events as well here in Bergen and in Norway in general, where they open a lot for the kind of social interactions, the networking and so on, and having a bit more fun as well beyond just the business part. You have the business part as well, you build some network and so on, but you also have the social part as well. So that combination I really enjoy, where I both have the chance to mingle, meet new people, but also book some meetings and maybe even get some sales in some cases. The situation where there's a possibility for both, I really enjoy that. And that's also what makes it a bit challenging for me to answer the second question, because of this like balance kind of overlap. Because what is work in general? Like when you're having fun, nothing is work and everything is work, right? That's how it feels a lot for me, right? Because in weeks like this, like when we're getting into the summer, like it can get up to like 20-25 meetings a week basically, which is a bit of work. And then you have the operational work and working on client work and projects and new sales and other things, and the operative parts, right? But then you also have some of the events, the social stuff, and then you have to, so like basically it flows over to each other. So yes, I work a lot, but part of it is also the social events where like I get to have a lot of fun, I get to have a great time, but just building the relationships is also essential when you're building something in the B2B space as well. It like business is a big part of it, but just building good relations is a very important aspect as well, because people buy from people partner up with people, and then the business is one thing, but also how they see you as a person is a very important element as well.
That's a very deep and insightful answer. Thank you for sharing it with me. And by the way, I think that work is not work when you have identity and you identify yourself with a successful businessman, with entrepreneur, with maybe a person who sees the future and helps the society. And how do you define your mission, personal mission, and the mission of your company?
Well, that's a very good question in general, because when you see for instance, the project like Companion, that has a very dedicated goal, especially to help humanity in general with using AI for mental health. And then when it comes to the other projects within the company in Nordic AI for more business projects and solutions, it may not be specifically aligned in that way, in the same way, but it is more about making it easier for companies to implement AI. So like that's part of the reason why we're splitting off a subsidiary or a daughter company with the Companion project. It has a little bit of different target audience, a little bit of different focus and mission than Nordic AI's other projects and solutions in general. But that's basically what I would say is the mission right now, is that there is Nordic AI focus and mission, making it easier for businesses to implement AI, while Companion is dedicated to using AI to help people struggling with mental health as a whole globally.
I tested your Companion project, and we even created a version of it for Ukrainian people, for people who suffering from the war and need support, and we tested it. And can you tell what whose idea was it? This is Sebastian's idea, the Companion, and how do you plan to promote it and to make it more accessible from people of the world? How do you how to describe this project?
Well, so it all started with Sebastian going through a tough time himself for a few years ago. So around 2023, he went through some challenges and kind of started using ChatGPT in the early stages, and so it kind of tested it out to try to help him going through a difficult time. And then that's when he kind of built a custom GPT that had a different kind of focus than just asking ChatGPT regular questions. It's kind of, he turned it around so that would ask reflective questions. It would show empathy, but it would generally focus on asking you questions about how you felt, what you're going through, and so on, and then matching that with empathy and so on. And that was kind of the starting point of this project. And by now the custom GPT for that has around at least 1,600 user cases last time I checked, and now we have started with the full development. Now that we've gotten more projects and everything going through Nordic AI, we're funding and doing a full-scale software development of a new application based on and that's why we're now setting up a new subsidiary for this. We're getting external investors involved in financing the full distribution and further development of this. And so now we've started with internal testing of the application, and then we're going to have the soft launch in July and the full launch in August of the actual application. So now we're actively testing it and working with investors to get ready for the full financing forward of this as a separate startup and subsidiary company.
With so many tools coming to appearing in the market each month and even each week, what kind of challenges do you face, and do you think that there are some projects that need complete restructuring and rewriting, and some of them go to nothing after some updates? What kind of challenges do you face on your development and in your AI projects?
AI is a bit of a challenging part of working in AI in general, is that things are moving so fast. But I think an important way to look at it is that you kind of have to be experimental in this stage. AI is already starting to provide a lot of value for businesses and have a lot of use cases in practice. So I think a lot of it has to do not necessarily with choosing this and this particular tool, but actually identifying these are the places in the company that using AI has the most potential for. And then when I then go out to customers and see that they have this workflow, they started with it in ChatGPT maybe, but that should be automated through Zapier or some other low-code tool or kind of a full-scale automation, then the important part is not whether I use Zapier or Make or N8N or other no-code or low-code low-code tools, right? What is primarily important is that I've mapped out or understood that these are the stages in the workflow that needs to be automated. This is how the process is generally being done manually. And then whether it's done through Zapier or Make or N8N or another thing, then that doesn't really matter as long as it gets done, as long as it works, right? That's ultimately the thing. Like businesses and owners and directors don't really care that you're using AI in a sense. Like at the end of the day, they're expecting results. They want results, and they may be interested in what results AI can bring them, but not the technology in itself. It's very few of them who are actually deeply interested in how this technology works. And I think that's the perspective that is important to have when AI, the technical things, are developing so fast, that we are focusing a lot on the business part to map out that completely first, and then we're using the technology available now to actually make the most out of that for providing business value in those use cases.
I think you touched on an important point of difference between people who try to sell AI solutions just showing some scenarios and workflows using sophisticated tools and showing complicated diagrams. And that doesn't convince business owners, but you speak from the owner and founder standpoint, and you treat the system problems as the person who is responsible for this. And that's an important thing that you have in mind. I think that's what differentiates you from many people who are technically advanced but business blind, I would say. And by the way, you invite people to do discovery calls on your website and on your pages. And how do you prepare yourself and your team to respond with rigor and empathy? And how do you prepare? And what kind of items are important for these calls in your team?
Well, it starts with understanding what they need, and part of that is the point of the call itself is to actually understand more of that. So of course, when we're going into these calls, to some degree we have limited information, but they can also provide some information when they're actually booking the calls, or if I met them at other places, I maybe checked out their LinkedIn, I've connected with them those places, I can study a bit about the person, about the company in general, and if they've written into the meeting booking like Calendly or Cal, what their kind of reason for calling or reason for setting the meeting is, then like if that's to save time or some specific automation or some more explanation from there, then of course I will have a little bit more of a basis. But the important part is generally just, okay, when we get into that meeting, we have some sort of understanding that, okay, I'm doing this, you are doing this more or less, okay, then providing the curiosity into the picture. Okay, you are a company within the car industry, or you sell this, I've checked your website and so and so, and I noticed that this and this, and then basically going forward in a bit from a curiosity perspective is an important part of it, as well as trying to identify ways you can help out at the same time as letting them talk as well. I think it's a very important part of the discovery calls. Like, you are not supposed to talk a lot during the discovery calls, right? Like, it's the whole point is that you are going to understand as deeply as possible what they are doing or where they have a pain point and need that you can help provide. And the more information you have about them, the easier it will be for you to actually satisfy their need, or showcase that you can satisfy their need in this case. Because a very common amateur mistake is that you are talking 80-90% of the time, and then okay, they may be overflown with information. Some of it may be useful. You've talked about all the great things you can do, all the great things you have done, but you haven't really heard what they need in that case, right? And in some cases it may be enough, but in many cases, like, it's very easy to miss the nail when you go about it in that approach. So I think that's an important part of kind of maturing when you're doing the sales or discovery calls in general. Listen before you speak, basically.
Yeah, that's a very important thing, and I think that there is a book, Never Split the Difference, about the mastery of negotiations, and that's the important point that you touched about the ability to really hear, to understand another person. And also it's important part also to mirror his problem, to assert that he has this problem, hearing, listening to him for a while, and then let him talk. That's very nice point that you touched, Stefan. Yeah. And so you bridge operations, economics, and legal compliance.
Yep.
And how do you weave these threads into daily decision making in Nordic AI?
That's a great question. From my perspective, I consider the compliance and kind of the financial management as branches under operations in a sense, from my part, in how I deal with these tasks, because I deal with both the financial management and the compliance to a large degree, and that those are connected up to the operations in general, right? So I see for the financial management, of course, I have to manage all the things concerning the finances, making sure that the budgets are in order, that I'm conservative where I need to be conservative with the spending, and aggressive in the reinvestment where I need to be aggressive for us to scale as a company from there. And when it comes to the compliance part, making sure that we are compliant, like as an absolute minimum with existing regulations, upcoming regulations, as well as other kind of best case or best best practices concerning compliance and the contracts and everything, in addition to the proposals for making sure we have both the business and the compliance parts involved, as well as have good processes in place for making it as easy as possible to make the proposals, have all the contracts ready for when we can do the sales, set up new partnership agreements for distribution, new resources for development, and other things, right? So a lot of things we're working on right now is basically setting up better structures for everything, so that more of this will flow by itself, that we can send out even proposals for bigger projects, but that it will look professional in the proposals, and we can attach and send forward other contracts concerning these projects and new sales and so on though. So I would say the main difference here is between financial management and the compliance work, which are two parts of the operations, and then of course there are many other parts of the operations as well.
So I think that you are a disciplined person, and you have a lot of standard operational procedures, and you prepare all the proposals, invoices, and do all the paperwork and digital preparation. And I think you have automation in place as well. But how do you bring financial discipline and scale to AI-driven ventures?
Well, as I went in on concerning the financial management, it basically goes to the principle about finding the right balance between being conservative where I need to be and aggressive where I need to be, knowing where to hit the brake and knowing where to hit the gas, basically. Because as a startup, you don't absolutely never want to run out of money, then you're going to die out. But also, if you're too slow with scaling, if you're too conservative and too kind of scared to make the big investment and take the big risks, then you're not going to get the big rewards either, right? So I think that finding that good balance is an important part of my work to bring kind of financial discipline to Nordic AI in general, and into everything we do here, to be able to scale and grow to the extent we're looking for.
So can you tell me about EU AI Act compliance and what changes? It was a major milestone for the company as far as I know, and what internal changes did you lead to get there to with this compliance?
Yes, so the EU AI Act in general is a very new regulation, so it's a bit challenging to deal with because it's so new, and because we don't really have a lot of kind of industry standards or so on for the kind of how it will be kind of adopted into practice. But what we see is the main importance for us at this stage is mostly when it comes to the low-risk AI automation or low-risk AI systems, where it's a transparency requirement. That's mainly concerning our AI chatbots or other communication systems we're developing that involves AI out to the users or out to end users, end customers, and so on. And that's where it's very important for us to build this into the system when we're making chatbots for new users, that we're very clear that this is an AI agent or this is an AI assistant or an AI chatbot, that they're communicating with an AI is an important part of it. Because as mentioned, the regulation went into effect in last August 2024. It won't be enforced before 2026, but we rather want to have these things ready and figured out now rather than use a lot of time to set a lot of new projects and systems in place which need to be changed or removed next year anyways. We don't want to take that risk. We want to play it for the long term. We've actually gotten several requests where they ask us for kind of systems or agents who can communicate as if it's a real person, and then we always have to say that no, we have these internal guidelines for this. We thinking in the long term here, and we don't think it's a good idea basically to set up this for these systems when it's built into it, that it is as if it's a human. But then in many cases with many customers it's no problem as long as we can get it up to a certain degree of quality. Then it's kind of a changing process in the market and among users and among the society in general, that it will probably be more well accepted in the future anyway. So it's as long as it can uphold a certain degree of quality, that's what we're looking for when it comes to these new systems, though to the extent that it can be as good or like at least good enough to be helpful as an AI assistant or as a communication system in that sense.
I think that it's wise and smart that you plan ahead of future regulations and prepare in advance with maybe overthinking the details and being over compliant and under compliant to this. But how does it affect some industries of your clients, maybe some sensitive industries that you cannot just disclose that it's AI and it affects the reply rates, response rates, or whatever? Are there some issues with that?
Yes. So what we see with the EU AI Act is that it has different classification of different risk levels concerning how advanced the AI system is going to be. So most of the EU AI Act is mostly relevant for either nations and governments, governmental entities, and also like critical infrastructure and so on. So it's mostly for the critical infrastructure, the big industries like banking, some recruiting and so on. There, the high-risk systems are more the cases where there are industry like critical infrastructure where the AI will take more autonomous decisions, like is this person going to be hired or not? Is this person going to be accepted for a credit check or not? When these types of decisions are being made by an AI system rather than a human, then the risk is much greater that it will affect people's lives, possibly in a negative way. And then if it can be kind of a catastrophic result if this is done on a big scale and it produces big problems, right? We've seen many cases of that, like 3-4 years ago when Amazon tried to do this at an early stage with recruitment, when the police tried to implement some systems with this. So these are kind of some of the cases which have led up to this point where there are kind of strict requirements when you're implementing AI for things like this. Then the risk management, the risk assessments need to be much more thorough as preparation, and also you need to build it into the system much more carefully than to make sure it upholds the quality required for the risk that it poses for what can happen.
Yeah.
Question?
What would you say to a startup struggling to align AI ambition with compliance responsibilities?
I would say that it depends on your ambition, but if your ambition is the big scale projects, getting into the big industries, the big companies and so on eventually, then starting with the compliance work and into the operations very early will seem time intensive at first, but it's a very important part of going from the small scale projects over to the bigger projects eventually, because this, like compliance to GDPR, EU AI Act and these other kind of industry based regulations and other things, showing that you're serious about this, I think is a very important part of building authority in the long term. And especially when you're building in B2B, this is absolutely essential, especially if you're in Europe. Europe is well known for its regulations, and like companies across Europe are very well aware and familiar with the challenges that the regulations poses. So then immediately a common question you'll often get is, okay, is it GDPR compliant? How do you take care of the privacy or data or so on, right? Concerning the regulations, because this is so strict in Europe then it's even more important here in Europe, especially when you're doing the B2B. So like, of course, if you're only planning to do the small scale projects like small automations in Zapier, Make, or so on, like then you still need to care about it to some degree, but it won't be as much work to be compliant or address all the complications as if you're doing large scale software development projects, full stack, and so on, as well as developing bigger AI systems, like which may go over eventually to the high risk category, right? So eventually, if you're planning to grow bigger as an AI agency or have kind of AI project like that in the future, focusing on compliance in general is critical for building authority. So it's not just to avoid the fines or being compliant from a legal perspective, but it's also a serious business case when you're doing B2B in Europe in this field.
So, Stefan, can you share some story about a project that you are proud of, apart from Companion? Companion we talked about, but maybe not disclosing some personal information, but what product or client story are you proud of?
Well, I could say some existing chatbot sales and one with a CRM development project. I'm really satisfied with how far we've come with so far. So for instance, with Järfjälla, for instance, that we got the sale there, we set it up across the websites and Facebook and Instagram, which has worked really well. We also have another for a sauna company here in Norway that addresses already like hundreds conversations a week through the AI chatbot. Really satisfied with that. We've come now 6 months into the first phase of the CRM development project, basically the challenge of building an entirely new customer relationship manager entirely from scratch. So a big project for our stage in the startup process, but it's been a really, really exciting and educational process from there, which I'm excited to continue with and building out further, in addition to landing more bigger projects like this going forward.
I think your projects are more successful when you align your goals of your company with the goals of your clients. So when you tell about the success of your AI chatbot generating conversations, it sparks enthusiasm in your eyes and your optimism. So I think that it's a good sign that you are on the same road with your clients. And so can you advise to a startup struggling to get things going with their AI solutions? What advice can you give to a young team of AI automation agency, of people who want to replicate your success?
That's a good question, because it's the same challenges that you're going to go through as a founder, almost no matter which industry you're starting in, right? When you're starting a new company from the bottom, a lot of things need to be in place before things start really rolling, and that's why it's very important to be patient in that case, because it takes a long time for things to actually produce results. You need to put out in some long hours, some hard work over a long period of time, because for it to even produce a single sign of results, because basically the challenging part is going from 0 to 1. And then from there it's easier to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, and then going from 5 to 10 will be much easier, and going from 10 to 100 there will be much easier. So I think that's, like, think of it in hockey stick terms, basically the exponential growth. That's what you're going for as a founder, and then you need to be kind of aware of this when you're going into it. What I think is an important thing for early founders or early stage founders, or those considering starting as a founder, is that there are essentially 3 stages in personal development that you need to at least consider as a founder to be going through. Because at least what I went through for the personal development, at least the first year, was that the first phase is that you need to overcome the fear, right? It's a scary move to like start a company and risk a lot of money, possibly also your job, security, finances, and maybe other things as well. It's a big step, especially if you're going all into it as I did. Like maybe a lot of other founders may not go as all in as as I did at that point, but that's at least an important part to overcome. Start with overcoming the fear is an important part, but then the next step, when you have taken that step and go kind of all in or going actively into to actually taking a risk on it, then you also need to be patient with seeing the results, because the most challenging part is going from 0 to 1 in that sense, and knowing that it will take time and being patient in that case and putting in the hours and work despite not seeing any results. That is a critical part of distinguishing, okay, who will actually make it and who won't. Many people are too impatient. They want to see results quicker. They're all about get rich quick as possible, basically. But in practice, that doesn't really work when you're trying to build a company, a long-term company. Like, okay, people can gamble all they want on, like in the casino or Bitcoin or other crypto, but like if you're going to build a scalable and solid business, that's not how it works. It won't take off overnight. Like what most of the people we now see as overnight successes have worked on this several years, if not decades, before finally it took off, and then suddenly they're an overnight success, right? Because where did he come from? He has been working on this in the shadows for 10 years, right? That's what happens in a lot of cases, and many people don't realize how much work and how long time it actually is required before you get to the point where it actually starts taking off in this way.
I think that I have just heard one of the motivational lectures that one of the best motivational lectures of the last couple of weeks with this succinct short form that you managed to relate how you feel, how you treat entrepreneurial journey. And the important thing that I'm happy to hear how you describe the stages. But by the way, what is a common yet overlooked legal pitfall in AI projects that you always flag early? Is there some things that you that can change everything and put you to the bottom legally?
Well, both in AI and IT projects in general, there are a lot of pitfalls in general, right? There are so many different pitfalls. You need to do some risk assessments in the beginning as well, and that's why it's very important to have a good speccing process, like where you're going from the business requirements over to the actual technical documentation of how is this system going to look and actually work in practice. Because if you're just getting the kind of business requirements, what it's supposed to do or bring results to the company, okay, that's a starting point, but that isn't enough to tell how much work is going to be involved in actually building this out. Because a fact is that it's actually the rule rather than the exceptions that IT projects, software development projects, tend to get expanded until infinity. In some cases, it keeps growing and growing and taking more time and more money than originally expected. That's the norm. So that's a very important thing to be aware of when you are being presented with these requests or when you're selling this out to your customer, that being very careful about this and knowing that it probably will be some things that you can't foresee, and you don't know what will happen. You don't know all the things that can go wrong in a sense, but that's why you need to be very careful in the planning phase, like maybe even before signing the contract or before presenting the proposal to the client. That's being very clear about these things, and sometimes this is also why you should rather overestimate the hours you use rather than underestimate, because there's always some things that can go wrong, some things that it can take more time, and it's way more likely that it's going to be above the estimates than under the estimates, right? Especially when it comes to the longer scale projects, for that may take many months, 6 months, or even several years. Then it's even more important to have a very careful analysis and understanding that these are things that can happen. Okay, other like legal pitfalls and so on are important to think about as well. But I think that this part is a very critical part, just the step from the business requirements to the technical requirements. That should be a very careful process, and then when you have that in place, then you go over to see the organization. Okay, are you going to have internal team members or internal personnel who are going to be dedicated to working on these projects? Are you going to have subcontractors? Which developers can be set on this, for how much time, for how much hourly rate, and so on. Basically the HR work of dedicated connecting to the technical requirements. And then from there, when you have all of that, then you can start with the legal stuff from there. Then you can look at some basically the liability and all of these other kind of legal clauses that can be and should be mentioned in the process here. But a lot of it in the first place is about the actual technical documentation, making sure that is as clear as can be as a starting point before you start with the project, because there's always some things that happens during the project. And then when you have that in place, then making sure that you build out a good contract from there with all the legal clauses and everything that is kind of best practice in this sense, then that can be considered from there. And usually what I do, or I do sometimes when it comes to these contracts, is that then when we have already done the tech specking, we have the organizational requirements and so on, we've done this process, then when we go over to the contract parts, in some cases I do have contract templates from before I can build on, but in the cases where I don't have that from before, I sometimes use either existing templates, like official templates from the government of these types of IT, like public tender offer projects and so on, or I use ChatGPT to basically set up a template. From that, I do some editing and adjusting of this myself based on my own knowledge and experience of setting up these contracts, and then I send it over to our legal counsel basically for the extra adjustments, because she's way more advanced with understanding of these things than I am. So having the legal competence internally is very critical. It's very helpful, and that's also a challenge for many startups, is that they don't have this, right? Everyone knows that it's very expensive with lawyers in general, but being able to find people and legal counsel and lawyers who actually believe in the mission of the company and want to work with you, that can be absolutely amazing, especially when you're starting to get projects and starting to get some revenue. That's when you really need to have these things in order, and should get in order as soon as you have the chance, basically.
Yes, I see that you have some conservative approach and multifaceted with considering all the different aspects and risks, considering all the risks, and that I think that marks a advanced and experienced businessman, that you look like you have a well-grounded team and well-structured company. And as for yourself, in future, looking ahead in the future, what inspires you, incites you the most? What kind of horizons or goals are most ambition goals, or how do you see your future of yourself, the company, and the company as a whole in 5 years?
Yeah, well, there are many things I could go into here, both with Companion and the other projects and everything going on in Nordic AI as well. Really looking forward to when we get the subsidiary set up for a Companion, get the official launch of that in July and August, getting actual onboarding new users for that one, starting to partnering up with some businesses and other organizations to actually distribute Companion more on a broad basis. Very excited for that. Getting more funding from investors for Companion, and getting to scale up the dedicated Companion subsidiary will be a very important part, as well as how things are looking with Nordic AI in general now, with new projects when it comes to chatbots or AI assistants, AI agents, new projects for full-scale applications, and continuing the CRM development and other applications and solutions from there. A lot of things are looking real prominent, both for the Nordic AI front and the Companion and the dedicated Companion project and subsidiary. So it's a lot of things I'm really looking forward to building into the future, and kind of building kind of the AI future where we're going for, or the human approach to AI, basically, because we all know that it's coming whether we want it or not, basically is the case at this moment, and getting to be a part of how it's going to be built into a business and into people's lives in general, and getting to, as well as I can, basically having that in a positive way, and making sure the right guardrails and security and all of these kind of concerns are addressed when building this out into practice. Because if we don't do it, then maybe no one else will, at least not with the same kind of vision that we have of this matter. And that's what really excites me, to work so thoroughly and so kind of cutting edge with this kind of AI in practice.
That's a great answer. I like it. And I think that people are attracted to Nordic AI, and with your personality or your mission, I hope that Companion, I will use Companion in the future, and hope that you will integrate it into Ukrainian culture as we started doing some months ago. Maybe at the end of this interview, could you could you address your future clients, why they choose you, and what kind of problems are you looking to solve with your clients? So just give a intro speech about the company for a person who watches this video and considers working with Nordic AI.
Yes, so I would say our focus is making AI simple for business to adopt. It's basically, if you are interested in AI in general, if you're lacking internal resources for that, then we're a good alternative, basically because we do the whole thing as a strategic partner. We do both the advisory services for workshops and advising on how to make the best possible use and get value out of AI, either through workshops or kind of continuous advice, as well as we continue to always keep building out new AI solutions, like AI assistants, AI agents, workflow automations, and so on, as well as have the chance to do both smaller scale and larger scale projects from this. It could be everything from individual automations to large scale projects of new solutions, apps, softwares, and services, or platforms that's built onto some sort of AI or services, AI or automation in general. And because even though we're technically a small team, when we have built up this network and competence, right now that we have so many different companies we're sourcing from internationally, we can quickly and be agile basically to get the resources and developers we need for new, even bigger projects, right? Where our focus as Nordic AI is that we are, as a Nordic-based company, we provide the Nordic values for the actual quality assurance, the project management, the advisory, making sure that things are up to the standards of quality that our customers require, while also we take the best out of the developers we can find internationally, and we have good HR processes for. So always when I talk to customers about, when they ask, why should we use you rather than go to Upwork or Fiverr? Basically, sure, you can do that, but we actually have proper sourcing processes in place and have actual companies we have contracts and subsidiary or contracts with as subcontractors that will work well as that we do the actual quality assurance, the project management, the stand-up meetings, instead of you as a company or client needing to have those two to four meetings with the developers a week anyways, right? If you want to save time, basically that's what you get with us compared to going that route.
Yeah, thank you for such elaborate answer, Stefan. And I think we will sum up this interview. I was happy to be here with you and to know you for some time, for some months. I'm looking forward for the next interviews and new solutions from Nordic AI and from your fantastic team. We will make a few other interviews with your. Hopefully, they will be as exciting as this one. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.